Angela rows boat. The radio asks, "Are you guys coming in?" Ruby can hear but the rest of the family is deaf. On the Salado fishing wharf, the quotas are restrictive, limiting the money the fishermen can make. A solution I keep saying, let's sell our own fish. Ruby translates for her parents at the doctor, but when it's jock itch, she distorts the doctor's info by saying her parents have to avoid sex forever instead of 2 weeks. Ruby doesn't want to watch her parents fight about money, so she closes her eyes. Feds are going to have fishermen to have a person on the boat for $800 a day. Bernardo's meditating and Ruby talks to him about why she ran out of the room because she has been made fun of in the past for her voice being ugly. Jackie wants Ruby to call their grandma, but Ruby's with her friend Gertie, who thinks Leo's hot. Gertie wants to date Leo, but Ruby doesn't want that. Ruby shows her how to sign. Gertie wants to sign to Leo that he's hot, but Ruby taught her to sign that she has herpes. Gertie leaves not knowing what she signed. Bernardo wants the choir to sing better, so he gets Ruby to sing by calling her up to front and getting her to do little dog exercise. She sings with clarity and Miles, and the teacher smiles. Bernardo chooses Ruby and Miles to sing a duet together and gives them the music. Leo sells fish. Ruby negotiates. Frank smokes a joint. Ruby and Leo fight, but they want to sell fish. Choir sings and has fun. Afterwards, Bernardo wants to hear the duet, but it sounds like Ruby and Miles didn't practice. Not together. Bernardo asks Ruby what her plans are after high school. He offers to help her weekends and evenings in order to prepare her audition for Berklee. She doesn't know what that is. She has no plans but to work for her family. Ruby tells her family she joined the choir, but Jackie thinks it's because of rebellion against what she herself can't do. Leo wants to open a business, but Frank thinks the other fishermen don't like them because they are deaf. Leo says yes to Brady's offer of going for a beer. Leo can lip read at the bar. He tunes out. A guy spills beer on him. Leo starts to fight, but Frank stops them. Leo sits at the bar to drink his troubles away, but he sees Gertie, who gives him her number, and they text and flirt. Leo and Gertie make out in the closet. Miles comes home with Ruby, but she's self-conscious that her place is a dump. Miles's parents support his music, but they suck the fun out of it. Miles and Ruby practice but are interrupted by Jackie and Frank having sex. Frankie and Jackie talk in the living room with Ruby, but it seems like Ruby is the parent. But her parents want to know what Miles' intentions are and suggest he use a condom. When they ask if Ruby is having sex, Miles leaves and Ruby is embarrassed. Gertie tries to calm Ruby down about Miles until kids in the cafeteria mime sex noises at her, and it's clear Miles told kids at school what happened when he was over at her house. Miles runs after her to say that he didn't tell everyone he told Jay because he thought it was funny. Ruby cries in the hallway. Bernardo tries to get Ruby to release her voice, but it's tight, so he gets her to make ugly noises and it works. Frank gets Ruby to translate that he's frustrated and wants to sell his fish and offers to give the fishermen double of their paycheck, but he didn't think it through, and afterwards the family wonders how that will work. Frank wants to expand to the other families, but Jackie calls them hearing bitches and thinks they want nothing to do with her. She says they have their hearing community, who, Ruby says, see her once a month. Jackie thinks they can't talk to the people who hear. Ruby gets up at 3 a.m. to fish. On the boat she studies her music. She sells fish off the boat and recruits a few fishermen to the program. Bernardo goes over the sheet music with Ruby. Jackie signs the paperwork to a warehouse. Ruby practices with Bernardo. Jackie cleans out the warehouse while Ruby looks at her paperwork. Jackie feels the distance between them. Miles passes Ruby on the way out from Bernardo's and he tries to talk to Ruby, but she won't. Bernardo calls her late. Bernardo claps while Ruby plays. Misha, Bernardo's son, plays nearby. Frank stencils a fresh catch sign on the wall of their new business space. Leo and Gertie make out. Ruby sees them and is disgusted. A few ladies laugh while they work, but Jackie can't hear them and feels left out. Ruby is on the phone and doing more than she expected. Bernardo is on the floor with Ruby doing breathing exercises, but she falls asleep. Bernardo opens the door to find Ruby late for practice again, and he threatens to stop helping her if she keeps wasting his time. Miles tells Ruby that her family seems great and he is troubled. Ruby still doesn't have time for him. The fishermen's wives tell jokes and Jackie feels left out. Ruby heads out to practice, but a reporter comes who does a story on the family. Ruby stays so misses practice with Bernardo because he doesn't let her in. Bernardo plays music and Ruby talks to him. He accuses her of not being serious and she explains that she's never done anything without her family before. The family watches hockey and Ruby explains her plans to try to go to college. They say they need her there. She says singing is what she loves. Jackie and Frank discuss Ruby and how she's not a baby. The fishermen's wives tell jokes and Jackie feels left out. Ruby heads out to practice, but a reporter comes who does a story on the family. Ruby stays so misses practice with Bernardo because he doesn't let her in. Bernardo plays music and Ruby talks to him. He accuses her of not being serious and she explains that she's never done anything without her family before. The family watches hockey and Ruby explains her plans to try to go to college. They say they need her there. She says singing is what she loves. Jackie and Frank discuss Ruby and how she's not a baby. Miles texts Ruby at 3 a.m. asking how he can make it up to her. Leo and Frank get ready to fish with no Ruby, when Jackie the observer shows up to come on board with them. Jackie speaks but Leo and Frank ignore her, which she's used to. Ruby takes Miles swimming and they jump off a big cliff. Joanne finds out Frank and Leo are deaf and makes a phone call. Miles and Ruby jump off a bigger cliff. The radio, no one picks up on the boat and officers come. Joanne explains Frank and Leo are deaf and it seems she called the authorities. Miles kisses Ruby. Jackie and Frank argue and Ruby returns. Ruby finds out what happens. They are ordered to pay a fine and Ruby asks when the family can go back to fishing. They are told that here an individual has to be on board at all times. Over dinner Ruby volunteers to stay and help the family. Jackie and Frank are happy but Leo pushes back. Leo storms off. Jackie comes to Ruby with a dress she bought for her. They talk and Jackie explains how she worried they wouldn't connect if Ruby could hear in a family of deaf people. Leo finds Ruby and encourages her to go to the audition. Ruby sings at her high school concert but she watched her family sign to each other in the audience. From the audience perspective we hear only silence. Afterwards, Bernardo meets Ruby's parents. Frank goes to get some air but Ruby follows him and he asks her to sing. She doesn't. He puts his hands on her throat to feel the vibrations. Ruby texts Bernardo to say she's coming to the audition. The Rossi family piles in the car to all go with Ruby but when they get there, they aren't allowed to go in. Only Ruby. Ruby is a half hour late and Bernardo comes back to play with her. She is nervous but Bernardo messed up so she can start again. She starts to loosen up and signs to her family in the audience who have snuck in. Frank has a new deckhand. Ruby gets accepted to Berklee. Miles and Ruby jump off the cliff. Frank speaks to Ruby in his voice but Ruby signs back "I'll love you forever" to her family as they drive away, leaving her at school.